Hey everyone, welcome back to TryHackMe's Advent of Cyber 2. I'm Dark, and today we're going to do Day 8, What's Under the Christmas Tree. Day 8, What's Under the Christmas Tree, Prelude. After a few months of probation, intern Elf McEager has passed with glowing feedback from Elf McSkitty. During the meeting, Elf McEager asked for more access to the best festival companies, TBFC's, internal network as he wishes to know more about the systems he is sworn to protect. Elf McSkitty thought this was a good idea. However, Elf McEager hasn't been taught how to gather information like this. Thankfully, TBFC has a wonderful upskill program that Elf McSkitty decides to enroll Elf McEager in to cover a course of Nmap. So today we're gonna learn about scanning, and today we're gonna dive into specifically how we can learn what ports are open and a little bit more about different computers that we're attacking. Section 8.1, getting started. Before we begin, we're going to need to deploy two instances. So we're going to go ahead and start by deploying the attack box, which you can do by pressing the blue button at the top right of the page. I've already done that in this case. And then you need to deploy the VM attached to this instance, which you can do with this button right here. All right, let's dive into section 8.2, today's learning objectives. We're going to be exploring the use of Nmap in our information gathering stage to build a picture of how the services running on a remote computer, and to understand how these may be useful to us. We'll also be showing the Mmap scans, or how Mmap scans may be detected and blocked by the use of firewalls. And today's task was as well made by CMnatic. And if you're enjoying these tasks, along with yesterday's task, feel free to shoot him a tweet on Twitter. I know he loves getting feedback from this. 8.1, Intro to Nmap. An open source, extensible, and importantly free tool, Nmap is one of the few industry standards that everyone should have in their toolkit. Nmap is capable of a few things that are essential in the information gathering stages of a penetration test. Methodology, such as the PTES standard, which you can find here. If you want to see a little bit more of like the total picture of what we're building up to do, you can take a look at here. And I definitely recommend give it a little bit of time just to look through that, and it'll give you a greater understanding and greater appreciation for everything that we're doing. And we're going to be taking a look at host discovery, vulnerability discovery, as well as service/application discovery. And I don't know if it's mentioned here, there is an Mmap room. I will have that linked in the video description as well. Not just because I'm the one that made the room, but I definitely recommend checking that out. It'll give you a nice overview, and it'll help you reinforce this since, well, you're doing it here anyways. Section 8.1, Basic Nmap Functionality. We'll quickly gaze over the basics of getting started with Nmap, the scan types, and the syntax for those types accordingly. We'll apply our networking knowledge learned yesterday in Day 8, The Grinch Really Did Steal Christmas, to help understand the differences between TCP and UDP scanning. TCP scanning. There are two common TCP scan types that you'll be using in Nmap. On the surface, they seem to perform the same thing, however, they're very different. Before we break this down, let's illustrate TCP/IP's three-way handshake again and recap the three stages of a normal TCP three-way handshake. So we have our SYN packet, we have the SYN ACK, and then we have ACK. That is going to be the, hey, I want to start a communication with you, or I want to start a conversation with you. This is my ISN. Give me yours. Then the server responds with the SYN ACK packet, which is a, cool, I want to talk to you too. Here's my ISN, I've acknowledged your ISN. And then our client machine says, hey, I acknowledge your ISN, let's start talking. And you can see that on this diagram. It's the back and forth that results in that three-way handshake. And then we have two scans that we can abuse this with. The first one is the connect scan, which is the ST, that is otherwise known as a TCP scan. And then we have the SYN scan. This is my favorite one to use, the -S, capital S, and then we have our IP there. The SYN scan, the most favorable type of scan. Nmap uses the TCP SYN scan -lowercase s, capital S, if the scan is run with both administrative privileges and a different type isn't provided. So it's the default scan, as long as you are an admin or have permissions to run that scan. Unlike the connect scan, this scan type doesn't utilize the three-way handshake as what would normally take place. Instead, after the SYN ACK, so the second bit here, is received from the remote host, a reset packet is sent by the host that we are scanning from never completing the collection. So essentially we're saying, hey, the best way that I like to think about this is if you've ever seen people ding-dong ditch people, although you'll see kids run up to a doorbell, ring the doorbell, and you see whoever lives in the house run out and try to see what was going on, and the kid's already down the block. It's exactly what we're doing here. We are ding-dong ditching every single port on this box. And sometimes we're going to see what comes out. Sometimes it's an FTP server, sometimes it's a web server, sometimes it's something completely different. This scan type is the most favorable method, as Nmap can use all the information gathered throughout the handshake to determine port status based on the response that is given by the IP address that is being scanned. So given what the port sends back, we can figure out if it's open. So if we get back our SYN ACK packet, it's going to say that, hey, this port is open. If we get a reset packet, or a packet with a reset flag rather sent, it's going to say that it's closed. If we don't get anything back, or we get just some weird stuff back, it's usually filtered. And that's usually where you have a firewall sitting in front of it. Not only this, but since fewer packets are sent across the network, there is less likelihood of being detected. This is not true, actually, because you will be detected by doing a SYN scan, unless you're doing it at super paranoid levels. These are very obvious. For those of you that are interested in defense, you will see SYN or Mmap scans, and I recommend setting up Alien Vault, OSIM, or some other SIM, just some free software on your own network, just to see what's out there. I don't know if we're going to cover it with the content here. I know we are going to cover it on the site soon, so just keep an eye out for that. These scans are super obvious. They're very, if you go and you start at port 1 and then go to port 2 and go to port 3 and then so on and so forth, it's pretty obvious you're scanning the host. The connect scan. Unlike a SYN scan, administrative privileges aren't required for the scan to run. This is a result of Mmap using the Berkeley Sockets API, which has quickly formed to be the new standard of how services like web applications communicate with an operating system. As a result of more packets being sent by Mmap, the scan is easier to detect and takes a longer time to complete. Moreover, as the three-way handshake completes as if it were a normal connection, it can be logged. This is also not 100% true. This can be logged too. So just keep that in mind. Neither of these are really stealthy. You don't need to worry about that. As a junior pen tester, you don't care about being caught. The only time you're going to care about being caught is if you are doing dedicated red teaming, which is a different thing. I'll have a book linked in the description. Let me write down a note to actually add that. That is going to be the Red Team Manual. It is more of a management book, and it's something that I'm not directly associated with this book at all. It's one of the pieces that I've read and had it previously recommended to me, that it'll walk you through the management side of a red team, and it explains a lot more of like the difference between doing a vulnerability assessment, which is like the lowest level, so just scanning something with a tool like Nessus, versus a penetration test versus red teaming, because they are all very different. Let me go ahead, I'll add a note for that. So go ahead and take a look in the video description. It's just going to be an Amazon link for Amazon.com, not affiliate or anything, but if you are interested in getting some reading, check it out. Nmap timing templates. Nmap allows the user to determine Mmap's performance. So measured in aggressiveness, a user can use one of the 6 profiles, 0 to 5, 0 is considered a profile, to change the rate at which Mmap scans at, with T0 being the stealthiest, kind of. These can still be tracked over long periods of time. This just means the scan is super slow. You don't really need to play with this as much. I usually, T3 is the default. A lot of times I'll change this up to T4 if it's taken a while. This profile scans one port every 5 minutes, whereas T5 is considered the most aggressive and potential to be inaccurate. So you don't wait as long for responses. I believe this level is actually considered to be insane, is the name for it. So you don't really need to use this. I use it when I'm incredibly impatient. I don't really care what I'm getting back. I want something back. I usually, T3 is the default, so if you don't specify anything, it uses 3, which is right in the middle. If you want things to be set up or sped up a fair amount, just because something's taking a while, use T4. This is because T5 waits a mere 0.3 seconds for the remote device to respond to a handshake. Factors such as those listed below determine how accurate the scans are. The resource usage a remote server is under, so the higher the usage, the slower it is to respond to Nmap. If you have something that's super sluggish, like maybe a file server, or maybe it's your domain controller and it doesn't have enough resources for everything, it can take a while to scan that. The quality of the connection. If you have a slow or unstable connection, you are likely to miss responses if you're sending many packets at once. That's actually one of the benefits of having the attack box, because this is on the same network as all of the machines that we have up, and it's on Amazon's infrastructure. Scanning from one part of Amazon's infrastructure to another part is very, very quick. So if you have, if you are getting into CTF boxes or want to do some really quick scanning in the TryHackMe network, it's often worth spinning up the attack box, even if it's just for the scan, because you're going to get everything back super fast. Generally speaking, you will want to use low aggressive profiles for real world scenarios. However, in a lab environment where noise doesn't matter, high aggressive profiles prove to be the quickest. For perspective, Nmap uses T3 if no profile is provided. In a pen testing situation, you'd be inclined to use T2, whereas in a lab environment, T4 will suffice as stealth is not applicable. You don't need to worry about this as much in a pen testing situation. Don't mess with it. I recommend just turn it up if you need to. The big thing is, do you care about being caught? Probably not. An introduction to Nmap's scripting engine. This is the coolest feature of Mmap. A recent addition to Nmap is the Nmap scripting engine, or NSE for short. This feature introduces a plugin nature to Nmap where scripts can be used to automate various actions such as exploitation, fuzzing, and brute forcing. At the time of writing, the NSE comes with 603 scripts, which can be found here. These are installed by default when you have Mmap, which is included on the attack box, so you don't have to worry about this. This is super fun to dig through, though. You can start seeing different types of scans that you can do. The Vuln category is one of my favorites. You can see it down here, and I think we're going to do something with that here. If not, Blue actually uses this scan, and I think I introduced you to the Vuln scan in the Mmap room, so check that out as well. Take, for example, the FTP Pro FTPD backdoor script. This is an FTP server that was backdoored in production. It's actually an example of a supply chain exploit. Super cool. Definitely recommend, if that just flew over your head, Google supply chain exploit. That is something very fun to dig into. Source, that room is also a little bit on that, as well as the attacker KBE room, because it uses the same VM. The script attempts to exploit an FTP service that is running Pro FTPD version 1.3.3c, the version of which is fingerprinted by Nmap itself. We can provide the script that we want to use by using the -script or -script flag in Nmap like slow. Like slow. My goodness. And you can see that here with the -script, and then we've specified the one that we want to use. And you can see, again, all these are listed up here, which you can find here. And then we have our port that we're scanning, as well as the IP address at the end to round things out. Some additional scan types. Not only can we use the Mmap's TCP scan, but Mmap also boasts a combination of these various types for various actions that are useful to us during the information gathering stage. I've assorted these in the table below, giving a brief explanation of their purpose. And then you can see where there are 4 X's in a row with dots. That's just signifying an IP address. So -A, that is a combination one. It uses the script engine to perform an OS detection scan. I go through this a little bit more in, actually these are flipped. So this should be -O, it gives you the OS detection, and then the -A is aggressive, and that'll be updated by the time this room is pushed. So the -A will do a common script, so -S, C. I go through that in the Mmap video as well, which you can check out on the DarkSec channel. And this does your operating system detection as well. And I think one more thing on that. Oh, version numbers. There we go. -S, which we can see at the bottom here. Then -P lets us specify which port. You can use -P- down here, which is going to be scan either everything if we don't have a range provided at the end of it, or scan this range. And then -SV, which is going to be our version enumeration. And again, A is our combination scan. And I will ping the creator for this room and have him adjust that before this goes live. Defending against Nmap scans. The practice of security through obscurity doesn't work here. Whilst it may seem logical to attempt to hide a service by changing its port number to something other than the standard, such as changing SSH from port 22 to 2222, this is super common to see, and it's actually one of the other ports that I will guess if I'm looking for an SSH service. The service will still be fingerprinted during Nmap or during an Mmap scan, albeit slightly later on, because it's going to check all the default ports and the low ports first to see what it can get very quickly, and then it'll start checking the high stuff and seeing what it can find. Unfortunately, you cannot get the best of both worlds in having a service available yet hidden. Fortunately, open source intrusion detection and prevention systems, so intrusion detection is IDS, so intrusion detection system, and then you have IPS, which is intrusion prevention systems, such as Snort and Suricata, which you should check out here. There are links to both of them, so snort.org, and then this should be to suricata.org, suricata-ids.org. And they allow blue teamers to protect their networks using network monitoring. For example, you would install these services on firewalls such as pfSense, and you can see that here. If you want to mess around with pfSense, this is actually featured in the Throwback Network too. So the full networking course that TryHackMe has, you get to break into one of these. And this is a dashboard of one of these. This is an open source operating system that you can put on a router. I use OpenWRT personally, but pfSense is awesome. You can just install it on I think it's its own installation distro, so you just download the ISO from pfSense website, and then you just go wild, and you can do a bunch of plugins. It's very, very cool. And you can do a lot with it. As you can see, this is very customizable, and it's going to be more customizable than a router that you can just buy at the store. Rule sets such as the emerging threats for Snort and Suricata are capable of detecting and blocking a variety of potentially malicious traffic, including malware traffic, reverse shells, Metasploit payloads, and Mmap scans. So emerging threats, this is a threat or a set of rules that either the open source community has made or Suricata, I think it might be Proofpoint that actually puts together the emerging threats rule set. But they are rules that are run against all the incoming traffic, and your firewall has to be pretty quick to run on these, but it doesn't take too long. It goes through a set of fast rules that will say, hey, does this traffic meet this pattern? And if so, it may say, hey, hold on, this looks like botnet traffic. And that happens. When you are working on a SOC and looking at a SIM, so looking at incoming network traffic and seeing what is going on there, this is something that you're going to be using. And you'll be very thankful to have this rule set, because it is wonderful. This is a list of Snort rules installed on the pfSense firewall here. For example, detecting the Metasploit payload for CVE 2013-3205, we can see that we have that rule here. So it's HTTP ports anywhere on your home network, and then we specifically are looking for that Metasploit payload there. And the emerging threat rule to detect Metasploit payload, yeah. So you can dig in that a little bit more. It's definitely worthwhile playing around with these, as you can do some cool stuff, and being able to write these rules, that can get you a job, as there are a lot of people that specialize in that. And I forgot to mention during the Wireshark video, that is another tool that if you get very, very, very good with, you can do that full time. There are people that are very well paid just because they know how to use Wireshark very, very well. The Wireshark book, I believe, is massive, but the exercises that they have in that are wonderful. If properly configured, a majority of Mmap scans can be detected. This is especially true when using an aggressive timing template such as T4 or T5. Let's take a look at the following Mmap scan being detected. So we have Mmap-A for the aggressive scan, and then we're scanning. It looks like there should be a dot here as well. So yeah, there should be a 1 there, because that's not a correct network address for IPv4. But here we can see we've got the scan running, and we're starting that scan here against the pfSense firewall. After returning to pfSense a few seconds later, we notice that alerts are being generated by Snort. So it looks like we have a scan coming in here, and this is pretty obvious. You can see how these Nmap scans, even though they claim to be stealthy, they're pretty detectable by rule sets, because they're very well known, especially with Nmap being very, very popular. So we're viewing newly created alerts by Snort as a result of the Mmap scan. Even with the timing template of T3, Snort is capable of detecting the port scan, where after 6 alerts, in this case, the attacker is then blocked by the firewall. So we're seeing that, hey, you're scanning us, and we have the action set up as a result of this rule, that it says, hey, this was a scanning host, this was a malicious host, I'm not going to allow it to do this anymore, and the firewall takes action. This is something that you'll manually define as you're doing SOC work, which is actually a lot of your time in SOC work, is creating rules like this, or specific requests. After 6 alerts, Snort blocks the IP address running the Mmap scan from contacting the pfSense firewall. And then you can see that if we try to run that scan again, it's going to say, I can't reach it, and it'll appear offline. And you can see there's even a note here that if it is really up but blocking our ping probes, you can try doing a dash capital P lowercase n. It won't sing the ping probe, but the host is still going to deny all of our traffic. All right, and then we get into our challenge. As always, I'm going to go ahead and pause here for just a moment if you want to do the challenge on your own, which I highly do recommend for this day. Go ahead and pause the video here and then come back once you're all done. Otherwise, after we take a quick break here, we're going to go ahead and dive into this challenge. All right, and we're back. So let's go ahead and dive into the challenge. First, make sure that you've deployed this room. In this case, I've gone ahead and already done that, and I've just written my IP that I'm targeting here over in my terminal to make things easy. Our first question here is going to be, when was Snort created? Through a little bit of Googling, you can find that. It's going to be 1998. Using Mmap on our target IP address, and this will be different for you, so make sure you type this accordingly, and don't just type in the IP that I have. What are the port numbers of the 3 services running? So let's go ahead and run that scan. We'll just do Nmap, and then 10, 10, 18, 103. And this is going to be pretty quick, because we're scanning on, there we go. That's why I just waited to run the scan until I was filming. So you can see that we have those 3 port numbers. It's going to be 80, 22, 22, and then we have 3389. So it looks like we have a web server. This is probably SSH. I'm not sure what this is coming back as, and then this should be remote desktop. So this will be RDP. There we go. Run a scan and provide the dash capital P lowercase n flag to ignore the ICMP. So that's your ping to determine if the host is up. We're going to go ahead and do that again, and we'll try it without that, and it should be just as fast. And there you go. This is useful. There are a couple rooms on TryHackMe that you do need to run this. Even if you're scanning the host and it's coming back with nothing, consider trying to use this flag before saying, hey, it's down. Experiment with different scan settings, such as dash A or capital A for aggressive. Let's go ahead and we'll try that. So the aggressive scan is going to run the dash O option, the dash SV, there we go, SV, and then SC. So that gets you the common scripts, which is just going to do a bunch of basic checks against the host. This is super useful to get some information back. And this is using the scripting engine there. Dash S capital V gets you your versions, and then dash capital O gets you the operating system fingerprint. So it'll try to figure out what operating system is running on the target host. And we can go ahead and start this running, and we'll go ahead and click complete on that. And we'll take a look at our next question. Use Nmap to determine the name of the operating system or the Linux distribution that is running. What is reported as the most likely distribution to be running. So we'll give this just a moment. Let's take a look at our next question as well. Use Nmap's scripting engine to retrieve the HTTP title of the web server. This is going to be the title that appears at the top of the web page. You can view this in above the URL and to the left. You won't be able to see it in this room because I'm in the dev room and I have this bit hidden. So sorry. We're going to find out what that value is here when that comes back. And then now use different scripts against the remaining services to discover any information about them. While that's running, let's go ahead and I'll open a new tab. And we're going to run a vuln scan against it just so that you guys can see what that looks like. So we'll do -script, and then Von. That is going to run all of the scripts in the Von category of the Nmap scripting engine. And we'll go ahead and run that right now. And I'll walk through that just a little bit so you guys can see what that looks like. We'll bounce back, and I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording. Once we are all done with the scan, I will go ahead and turn it back on. So that literally happened the second I clicked to pause the recording. So that was wonderful. So it looks like we are looking for the distribution that we are running this against, or the distribution that the host is running. Looks like we're not having any matches directly. However, we can actually see if we go up to the SSH service that's running that this is a version of the SSH server for Ubuntu. So sometimes you won't get accurate information back from the fingerprinting scan itself, especially in a case like this, where this only has 3 ports open. That's not a lot of information to work with. However, if you look at the actual services that are running, a lot of times they're very specific to the distribution there. Use Nmap's scripting engine. We're going to find the HTTP title of that. It looks like we have it here, and that is actually going to translate to your TBFC's internal blog. Those are characters that are just escaped for this case. And we can go ahead and press submit. Maybe. Here, we'll give this just a moment. I think I need to refresh this. And through the magic of editing, we are back. So the question is updated just a little bit, and this will be the question that you guys see. Based on the value returned, what do we think this website might be used for? It is very likely a blog. And I do recommend pulling this up. I know that there are Easter eggs hidden throughout these tasks. Maybe some on day 24. I don't know. I definitely recommend pulling these up, as you're going to get some funny results usually. And we're going to take a look. I'll mark this as completed, and we're going to take a look at this Von scan. And I'll blow this up so you guys can see what that looks like. So this is the results of using the Von scan, and I definitely recommend playing with this yourself. This is going to go through and attempt doing a bunch of vulnerability checks. However, in this case, it didn't really find anything interesting. But on rooms such as Blue, you're going to find more interesting things in that specific case. I will have Blue linked to the video description, as I recommend checking out the Mmap room and the room Blue after this. Both of those are free, so check those out. Otherwise, that is going to do it for day 8. I will see you guys tomorrow with day 9. If you have any questions, as always, I have the TryHackMe Discord linked in the video description below, and I'll see you tomorrow.